It was a cold night in the city, and the lights of the tall buildings were shining like stars on the ground. Expensive cars moved fast on the wide roads, and music filled the air from a private mansion party. Inside, laughter, glasses of wine, and the sound of money spoke louder than anything else. In the middle of that party stood Daniel, a young millionaire. He was only 30, but his name was already famous in business magazines. People called him lucky, powerful, and untouchable. He wore a black suit, his watch was brighter than the chandeliers, and his smile could win any girl's attention. But behind that smile, there was something missing, something he himself never understood. Daniel had everything that money could buy, but he had no one who truly cared for him. To him, life was a game, and people were just pieces on the board. That night, as he sat with his group of rich friends, the air was full of arrogance. They laughed, they mocked, and they enjoyed their money like it was a crown on their heads. One of his closest friends leaned back in his chair and looked at Daniel with a sly grin. "Daniel," he said, "we all know you can buy anything you want. You can charm any woman in this city. But tell me, can you make an ordinary girl fall in love with you? A girl who doesn't care about cars, diamonds, or money?" The group chuckled. Another friend added, "Yes, let's make it interesting. Choose any simple girl. Make her fall in love with you in 30 days. If you succeed, we will call you the King of Charm. If you fail, you will give each of us $1 million. Daniel leaned back, his eyes sharp like a predator. He loved challenges, especially when people doubted him. "Is that your bet?" he asked. "Yes," the friend replied. "Do you accept?" Daniel smirked, lifted his glass and said, "I never lose." The table roared with laughter. To them, it was just another game, another way to waste their endless money. But none of them knew that this one bet would change Daniel's life forever. While the rich laughed and cheered, someone else was watching quietly. In the corner of the hall stood a young waitress named Elena. She wore a simple black dress with a white apron, her hair tied back neatly. She was not rich, not powerful, and not from their world. She was there only to earn enough to pay her father's medical bills. She moved quickly between the guests, serving drinks, ignoring the rude comments, and hiding her tired eyes behind a polite smile. She had no idea that at this very moment, her life was becoming the center of a dangerous game. As Daniel's eyes scanned the room, they fell on her. She was different. No diamonds, no designer dress, no fake laugh. Just a simple girl, walking with quiet strength. His friend noticed his gaze and whispered with a smirk, "What about her?" "The waitress. Perfect choice for your little challenge." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Her? She looks ordinary." "That's the point," the friend replied. "If you can make her fall for you, then no one can doubt your charm." The group laughed again, but Daniel's interest grew. Something about Elena's calm face, her quiet confidence, made him curious. He agreed. "Fine. She will be the one." And just like that, Elena's name was written into a bet she did not know existed. Later that night, as the party grew wilder, Daniel stepped away from his friends and walked toward the girl carrying a tray of glasses. Elena almost bumped into him, but she quickly apologized. "I'm sorry, sir." Daniel gave his usual charming smile. "No need to apologize. What's your name?" "Elena," she answered softly, not looking into his eyes for long. "Elena," he repeated, as if testing the sound of her name. "Beautiful. You don't belong here, do you?" She looked surprised, but she stayed polite. "I'm just working, sir. Excuse me, I have to continue." She walked away, not giving him the attention he was used to. And that single moment hit his pride harder than he expected. Daniel had met hundreds of women. Most of them chased him, admired his money, or begged for his time. But this one, she treated him like no one special. His friends laughed from across the hall. The King of Charm has been ignored. Daniel clenched his jaw but smiled. This will be fun, he thought to himself. The music grew louder, the night grew deeper, but something strange had already started. Daniel had accepted the bet with pride, but for the first time in his life, he felt a small spark of curiosity in his heart. Elena walked away, unaware of the storm coming her way. She had no idea that a game had begun, a game where her heart was the prize. And in that moment, the audience is left with a question. Would this be just another game for Daniel, or the beginning of something that would finally teach him the true meaning of love? The morning sun touched the city with a golden glow, but inside Daniel's mansion, silence ruled. His house was filled with art, expensive furniture, and rare things from around the world, but there was no warmth, no laughter. He sat on his balcony, drinking coffee, and thinking about the girl from last night. Elena. Her name echoed in his mind like an unsolved mystery. She was not impressed, not interested, not even curious. That was new for him. Daniel was used to being the center of attention, the man everyone wanted. Yet, Elena had walked away from him without hesitation. He smiled to himself. She will not be easy, he thought. But I never lose. That afternoon, Daniel's black car stopped in front of the small cafe where Elena worked after her morning classes. It was a humble place, nothing like the shining parties he attended. Daniel stepped out in style, attracting curious glances from the customers. Elena was behind the counter, arranging cups. When she saw him, her eyes widened for a second, then she quickly lowered her gaze. She did not expect the millionaire from the party to follow her here. "Hello, Elena," Daniel said, his voice smooth as ever. She frowned slightly. "Sir, what are you doing here?" "I came for coffee," he replied with a charming smile. "Or maybe, I came for you." Elena crossed her arms, unimpressed. "I am not part of your rich world, sir. You should order your coffee and leave." Her words were sharp, but they only made Daniel more curious. Most people would have melted at his charm, yet she stood firm, her tone calm but clear. Daniel ordered coffee anyway and sat near the window, watching her as she worked. Every move of hers showed discipline, responsibility, and quiet dignity. She was not like the women he knew, who ran after luxury. She seemed like someone who carried a whole world of struggles on her shoulders but still walked with strength. When she brought his coffee, Daniel tried again. "You are different, Elena. Most people want to sit with me, talk with me, be seen with me. But you—" "I don't care about that," she cut him off politely. "Fame and money don't impress me. Respect does. Honesty does." Her words stung more than he expected. For the first time, Daniel felt that maybe his charm was not enough. Later that night, Daniel met his friends at a private bar. They were eager to hear progress. "So, how's the waitress?" One of them laughed. "Already falling for you?" Daniel smirked but stayed silent. Deep inside, he knew the truth. Elena was not falling at all. His friends mocked him. The great Daniel finally found his match. "Don't tell me you're struggling." Daniel raised his glass, hiding his discomfort. "She'll come around. Just give me time." But when he went home, the silence of his mansion felt heavier than ever. He thought about her words again and again. Respect. Honesty. Words he had rarely practiced. The next day, Daniel decided to try a different way. He visited the small park where Elena often sat with her books after work. He approached slowly, not with his usual arrogance, but with curiosity. She noticed him and sighed. "Are you following me?" Daniel chuckled softly. "Maybe. But only because I want to know you. Tell me something, Elena. What do you want most in life?" She looked at him with suspicion, but then replied, honestly. "I want my father to get better. He's sick, and treatment is expensive. That's why I work 2 jobs. My dream is simple. I just want my family safe and happy." Daniel was silent for a moment. No one had ever spoken to him like this. Every girl he met talked about trips, jewelry, or fame. But Elena's world was built on love and sacrifice. Something strange stirred inside him. For the first time, he didn't think about the bet. He thought about her pain. But Elena wasn't ready to trust him. She closed her book and stood up. I don't know why you're interested in me, Daniel. But I'm not like the others at your parties. I don't believe in games. She walked away, leaving Daniel speechless. From the distance, his friends watched secretly, laughing. To them, it was entertainment. This is better than the movies, one whispered. The mighty Daniel is being ignored again. But Daniel wasn't laughing anymore. As he watched Elena disappear into the crowd, he felt something unfamiliar, respect. That night, when he lay in his empty mansion, he admitted to himself, Elena was not just part of a bet anymore. She was slowly becoming something else. Yet the cruel truth remained, Elena had no idea that their story had started with a lie. And the audience is left with one haunting question. When the truth comes out, will her heart forgive him, or will it break beyond repair? The city lights glowed once again, but for Daniel, the nights were no longer the same. His friends still laughed, partied, and wasted their millions, but Daniel's mind was somewhere else. It was with Elena. Every day he found reasons to meet her. Sometimes at the cafe, sometimes at the park, sometimes outside her night shift. He told himself it was all part of the bet, but deep inside, he knew, his heart was changing. One evening, he saw Elena leaving her work late at night. She looked tired, carrying a bag full of books and medicine. Daniel offered her a ride. At first, she refused. But when he insisted politely, she finally agreed. Inside the car, there was silence. For the first time, Daniel did not know what to say. He wanted to impress her, but words felt empty. You don't have to do this, Elena said softly. Do what? Daniel asked. Pretend to care. I know your world. I know how rich people play games. Her words cut deep. Daniel looked at her seriously. Elena, I am not pretending. I want to know you. Really. For the first time, Elena looked into his eyes. There was no arrogance in his voice, no fake charm. And for a brief moment, she saw something different in him, something human. They stopped near her small home. The street was narrow, the walls old, but it was filled with warmth. Before leaving, Elena said quietly, If you truly want to know me, then be honest. That's all I ask. Her words stayed with him long after she closed the door. The next day, Daniel visited her again. This time, Elena let him meet her father. The old man was weak, coughing, but his eyes shone with kindness. He welcomed Daniel without judgment, as if he were just another guest. Take care of her, the father said, smiling faintly. She works too hard, but she has a good heart. Daniel nodded, but inside, his guilt grew heavier. Elena's trust was slowly building, and yet, he had not told her the truth. That night, Daniel sat alone in his mansion. The bet echoed in his head. 30 days. Make her fall in love. Prove your charm. But now, the game felt poisonous. This wasn't about winning anymore. It was about protecting the only person who had ever seen him as more than a millionaire. Still, his friends didn't let him forget. At their next gathering, one of them asked with a mocking smile, So, Daniel, how's the waitress? Has she melted yet? Daniel glared at him. She is not just a waitress. The group laughed louder. Oh no. Don't tell us you're falling for her. He clenched his fists, trying to hide his anger. This is none of your business. But they pushed harder. Remember the deal. If you fail, you lose millions. Don't get soft. She's just part of the bet. Daniel left the gathering in silence. Their words poisoned his mind, but his heart screamed louder. He didn't care about losing money. He cared about losing Elena. Days passed, and Daniel tried harder to prove himself to her. He helped her carry groceries, listened to her dreams, and even learned to cook her favorite dish. Elena, slowly, began to smile around him. One evening, they walked through the park, the sky painted with orange and pink. Elena looked at him and said, You are not like the man I thought you were. Maybe you are better. Her words lit up his heart, but also burned his soul with guilt. If only she knew the truth. That night, Daniel stood in front of his mirror, staring at his reflection. For the first time, he hated the man looking back. Tell her the truth, his conscience whispered. Before it's too late. But fear held him back. What if she left forever? What if he destroyed the fragile trust she had started to give him? The deadline of the bet grew closer. His friends were excited, waiting to see him win or lose. But Daniel was no longer thinking of victory. He was thinking of confession. Finally, one evening, he decided. He would tell Elena everything. He drove to her house, rehearsing the words in his head. Elena, I must confess something. It started as a bet, but it became real. But fate had other plans. As Daniel stood outside her door, ready to knock, he heard laughter nearby. His friends were standing under a streetlight, talking loudly, unaware that Elena was returning home at the same time. One of them said, "Only a few days left. Daniel is playing the role perfectly. That poor girl doesn't even know she's just a bet." Daniel froze. His blood turned cold. And then he saw it, Elena standing a few steps away, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock. She had heard everything. The world around him collapsed. The night was heavy with silence. Elena stood frozen on the street, her hands trembling as she held her bag close to her chest. The voices of Daniel's friends echoed in her ears like thunder. That poor girl doesn't even know she's just a bet. Her heart pounded. The air felt colder. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Daniel, seeing her pale face, rushed toward her. "Elena, wait please, let me explain." But she stepped back, her eyes filled with tears and disbelief. "A bet," she whispered. "All this time, I was just a game to you." "No." Daniel's voice broke. "Yes, it started as a bet, but it's not like that anymore. You have to believe me. I never meant to hurt you. Elena cut him off, her voice shaking but strong. Don't you dare lie to me now. You came into my life pretending to care, pretending to understand, but all along, you were laughing with your friends." Daniel reached for her hand. Desperate. "Elena, please." At first, yes, it was a mistake, a foolish challenge. But then I changed. You changed me. Every word, every smile, it was real. My feelings are real. Her tears fell faster. Real? Do you know what real is, Daniel? Real is working 2 jobs to save your father. Real is staying awake all night, praying for one more day with him. Real is trust. And you broke mine. The streetlight flickered above them, making the moment feel even darker. Daniel's friends, sensing the danger, quietly slipped away, leaving the two alone. "Elena," Daniel begged, his voice trembling. "I was going to tell you. Tonight, I came here to confess. You have to believe me." But Elena shook her head. "You don't understand. It doesn't matter if you were going to tell me later. You should never have played with my heart in the first place." She turned away, walking fast, her tears glistening in the dim light. Daniel followed, calling her name again and again, but she did not stop. When she disappeared into her house, Daniel stood outside, broken, helpless, feeling the weight of his own choices crush him. For the first time in his life, the millionaire who had everything felt like he had nothing. That night, Elena cried in her room, her father worriedly asking what had happened. But she could not speak. Her heart was torn between anger and pain. The man she had slowly begun to trust, the man she thought was different, had betrayed her. In another part of the city, Daniel sat in his empty mansion, the silence louder than any music, the walls colder than any winter. He stared at the bet money on his desk, piles of wealth that suddenly meant nothing. He remembered Elena's words. Respect. Honesty. He whispered to himself. I destroyed the only person who gave me respect, the only one who believed I could be more than just money. 4 days, Daniel tried to reach her. He sent messages, flowers, letters, but Elena refused to answer. She avoided the cafe when he came, She ignored his car waiting outside. She wanted nothing to do with him. His friends, meanwhile, laughed at the outcome. Well, you lost the bet, Daniel. Time to pay up. But Daniel no longer cared about the money. He slammed his fist on the table. I don't care about your stupid bet. You ruined the only good thing in my life. The room went silent. For the first time, his friends saw a side of Daniel they had never seen before, a man not angry about money, but about losing love. One evening, Daniel stood outside Elena's house again. He waited until she came out to throw away the trash. When she saw him, she turned to go back inside, but his voice stopped her. Elena, please. Just listen for 1 minute. If after that you never want to see me again, I'll leave. Her eyes were cold, but she stayed. 1 minute. Daniel's voice cracked. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I was arrogant, selfish, and foolish. Yes, it started as a bet. But every moment I spent with you became the most real part of my life. I don't want your forgiveness because of pity. I want it because I truly love you. Elena's face softened for a moment, but then she remembered the humiliation, the laughter of his friends, and the betrayal. Her heart hardened again. Love, she whispered bitterly. If you really loved me, you would never have made me a joke. You would never have risked my heart for your pride. Daniel's eyes filled with tears, something he never allowed anyone to see. You're right. I don't deserve you. But I'll spend the rest of my life proving that what I feel is real. Elena turned away, her voice breaking. It's too late, Daniel. You broke something that cannot be fixed. She closed the door. And this time, Daniel did not try to stop her. He walked back to his car, his heart heavier than ever. The millionaire had money, fame, and power. But he had lost the one thing he truly wanted, the bride of his heart. And the audience is left with the question, can love survive when it begins with betrayal? Or is this the end of Daniel and Elena forever? Days turned into weeks, and the silence between Daniel and Elena grew like an endless wall. She returned to her work, her books, and her father's care, but her heart was heavy. At night, when the city slept, she often asked herself, was his love real? Or just another game? Daniel, on the other hand, was no longer the man his friends knew. He stopped going to parties. He ignored calls, ignored business dinners, ignored the empty laughter of the rich. For the first time, he began to live differently. He spent time at hospitals, secretly paying bills for patients who could not afford treatment. He donated to charities quietly, without cameras or newspapers. And most importantly, he never stopped caring for Elena's father. Every month, the hospital received large payments from an anonymous source. Elena never guessed who it was. She only knew her father's treatment was continuing, and she was grateful to the unknown helper. Daniel, meanwhile, never asked for thanks. He only wanted to prove, to himself and to her, that love was not about winning, but about giving. One evening, Elena's father called her to his bedside. His voice was weak but filled with peace. My dear, he said, do not let pain close your heart. Life is too short to hold anger forever. Sometimes people make mistakes, but love can change them. Elena held his hand, tears filling her eyes. She wanted to believe those words, but the wound in her heart was still raw. A few days later, she received a letter from the hospital. It was about the payments for her father's care. The note said, paid in full by Mr. Daniel Hart. Her heart skipped a beat. She read the letter again and again, her hands shaking. All this time, it was Daniel. He had been helping silently, without asking for recognition, without trying to win her back through pride. For the first time since the betrayal, Elena's anger began to soften. Meanwhile, Daniel had disappeared from the city's spotlight. Rumors spread that the young millionaire had gone quiet, that he was no longer the arrogant man everyone once knew. One morning, Elena received an invitation card. It was elegant, simple, and without any show-off. The card read, "You are invited. No pressure, no expectations. Just one chance to say goodbye properly." Daniel. At first, Elena wanted to throw it away. But something inside her whispered, go. See him one last time. The day of the event arrived. Elena dressed simply, her heart uncertain. She walked into a small church decorated with white flowers. The place was not grand like Daniel's usual parties, it was humble, peaceful, almost sacred. As she entered, the guests turned. To her shock, the music began to play, the sound of a wedding march. At the altar stood Daniel. But he was not dressed in arrogance anymore. He stood in a plain suit, his eyes searching only for her. Elena froze. Was this some cruel joke? Daniel stepped forward, his voice gentle but firm. Elena, I know what you're thinking. This is not a show, not a bet, not a trap. This is me, giving you a choice. The guests remained silent, watching. Daniel continued. I arranged everything, but there will be no bride here unless you decide to be one. I will not force you. I only wanted to tell you, in front of everyone, that I love you. Not as a challenge, not as a game, but as the woman who changed my life. Tears filled Elena's eyes. Her heart raced. She remembered the betrayal, the pain. But she also remembered his silent kindness, his care for her father, his change. The church was still. Every eye was on her. Elena took a slow step forward. Then, another. Her hands trembled, but her voice was steady when she finally spoke. You hurt me, Daniel. You broke me. But you also showed me that people can change. And maybe, love deserves a second chance. Gasps filled the church as she walked toward him. Daniel's eyes widened, tears shining in them. In that moment, she reached the altar, and the silence broke into applause. Elena was no longer the girl of the bet, she was the bride of his heart. The ceremony was simple, but filled with meaning. Daniel held her hand, promising never to let pride or lies come between them again. Elena, with tears in her eyes, forgave him, not because he was rich, but because he had truly changed. As they walked out of the church together, the narrator's voice echoed. Sometimes love begins with a mistake. Sometimes it starts with a lie. But what matters is not how it begins, but how it transforms the heart. The millionaire lost the bet, but he won something far greater, true love. And with that, the story closed, leaving the audience with one final truth. Even the coldest heart can learn warmth, and even the most broken trust can find healing, if love is real.